Okay guys, today we're going to look at factoring where a is greater than 1 or a number other than 1. So a little bit of modification. So to save time, instead of writing these out here, here are the notes for today. All right, so again, when we're talking about the a coefficient, we're talking about that leading coefficient in our quadratics in standard form. All right, so factoring steps 1 through 2 are the same. All right, first step is make sure it's in standard form. Step 2 is to look for GCF if it has one. And then step 3 here, is use the X method. And we're going to modify steps 3 and 4. 3 is more of just a check of what we're already doing. In this case, since a is not going to be a 1, it's going to be something different. It's not just going to be a whole number. Sometimes that might reduce to a whole number, but either way, we got to check to see if it reduces if possible. If it doesn't, it's fine. Leave it as a fraction. We don't need it to be a decimal. That doesn't help us. All right, so reduce the fraction if possible in step 3 when you're done doing your X method. And I'm talking about the left and right side of the X method. On step 4, you're going to write the function in intercept form. If the denominator is not a 1, okay, swing it to the front of the variable, guys. That's the swing method. So that's the modification there. All right, so we can't leave it there as that fraction. We got to move that denominator to the front of the variable, and you'll see in the following examples. So let's work example 1. Okay, we're going to factor this 2x squared plus 3x minus 9. Okay, so step 1, it is in standard form. Step 2, there is no GCF. So we're going to move on to X method. So this may help you. A is equal to 1. B is equal to, sorry, not 1, it's a 2. I'm still stuck. So A is a 2, B is a 3, and your C is a -9. Okay, and we can use those numbers to do our X method factoring. All right, so A being 2 goes to the bottom of our denominators, okay, and then the bottom of the X method. But remember, the bottom is A times C, so we're going to multiply it to -9. This gives us -18. So we got to find factors of -18 that add up to our coefficient 3 of B, which goes on top. All right, so a lot of times students will miss the multiplying it by 2 because they're so used to using 1. All right, so they'll try to find factors of -9 that equal 3 and get the wrong answer or no answer, not factorable. All right, so multiply that by the A value 2 and -18. All right, so those factors for 18 are going to be 3 and 6. And since it's a -18, one of these has to be negative. Also, if we use our hints, if we look at the back sign, the negative means we're going to have a plus, a positive factor, and a negative factor. So kind of a little bit of foreshadowing. All right. So my B value is a +3. So the trick I use is that I have a 3 and a 6 to choose from to give a negative. I want my factors to be the same sign as my B value. So if I have a +3 for B, I'm going to leave my 6, my bigger factor, to be a positive. That way, when I give 3 the negative and I add them together, I have 3 +3 remaining. If I did the other way, it'd be -3, and that won't be correct. It'll work on the bottom, but it'll be a -3 on top. But we need it to be that. All right, so reduce 6 over 2 is a 3. Okay, and then we can't reduce 3/2, so we'll just leave it like that. So step 4, write it in intercept form. So I'm going to have x minus 3/2 times x plus 3. All right. Now, since the modification, since we have a denominator of 2 in the first factor, we need to swing method that. Just take that 2 and move it to the front of the variable, not the parentheses. All right, so we're going to get 2 times x minus, and I just did what I said not to do. We're going to put parentheses 2x minus 3 and then x plus 3. There we go. And we have it factored out here. Okay. And again, when I'm checking for work, okay, I'm checking to have correct parts of your X method and then checking if you did your factoring correctly. All right, so if we do not do that swing method, remember it does have to multiply back. We can do a check of this. Let's rewrite out our factors. 2x minus 3 times x plus 3. All right, and then FOIL this. 2x times x is going to be a 2x squared. Let's move this up a bit. I'm running out of room. Okay. All right, so let's see here. So we're going to get equals to 2x squared, and then 2x times 3 is plus 6x. Then negative 3 times x is minus 3x, and then negative 3 times 3 is a negative 9. Combine like terms, 2x squared, 6x minus 3x is positive 3x minus 9, and that checks out what we get in our original equation. Okay, so again, it has to multiply back to our original thing when we factor, so it's a good way to check that. Okay, example 2, I made a typo, I forgot to put a plus sign in between there, so it should be 6x squared plus 7x minus 49. Okay, again, let's run through our steps. First thing first, is it in standard form? And it is. Is there a GCF? There is no GCF. So again, we'll go to X method factoring. Okay, so A here in this case will be 6, B would be a 7, and C would be a negative 49. All right, so let's go ahead and do the X method here. Okay, so A goes in the denominators, and then on bottom, A times C, which is 6 times a negative 49. All right, and that's going to be a pretty big number. That's going to be negative 294. All right, and then our B is a 7. That'll go on top. All right, so since negative 294 is a lot to find factors for, even if we're doing our little tree, we can use our calculator to help us. So in the calculator, all right, we're going to want to open a graph application. And this is for the TI Inspire. All right, so first thing we're going to do, f1 of x, we're going to take whatever number we're trying to factor, in this case 294. I'm not going to worry about the sign right now, so we'll take 294, type that in, divided by x. All right, then what we're going to do is when we do that, we may or may not see the graph. That's not important. What we want to do is make a table. Okay, and the way you make a table, you're going to hit the control button, and then you're going to hit the T. So when you hit control T, that's for control table. All right, if you forget what button, you can always find it in the menu. Just kind of read around in the menu, and you can make the table that way. All right, so it'll give you all the factors. It'll even give you factors that work that are decimals. All right, so we don't want decimals that don't help us. So only ones that have two whole numbers or two whole numbers. And in this case, what we're going to use is 14 and 21. Okay, so 14 times 21 gives us a 294. All right, so since it's a negative 294, and from foreshadowing, again, this back sign is a negative, so we're going to have a positive factor and a negative factor. One of those have to be negative, and since 7, the B coefficient, is positive, I'm going to make my bigger number positive, the 21, so I'll give the 14 the negative. Okay, reduce this, okay, it's 21, reduce it to 7/2, and if you're not good at reducing, type it in your calculator, and it will give you the reduced form. If it gives you the same number back, it's already reduced. Okay, but you don't want decimals. All right, and the negative 14 over 6 will reduce to negative 7 over 3. All right, so moving on, step 4, write it in intercept form. Okay, so we're going to have x minus 7/3 times x plus 7/2. Okay, and then in this case, we're going to have to swing both factors. All right, let's take this 3, put it in front of the x, and take this 2, put that one in front of the x. Okay, so rewrite it correctly. So 3x minus 7 times 2x plus 7. Right there, and there's our factored form right there. All right, one last example. All right, we got 9x squared plus 66x plus 21. All right, again, a little foreshadowing early, but if it's a plus there, we're going to get 2 positive factors. And how do I know if it's a plus sign? It will be whatever sign's in front of it. All right, so this one here is in standard form, okay, but there is a GCF. You can try the 9, but 9 doesn't go into 66, so it's a good idea to try your low number. But I do know some factor of 9 is going to have to work in here if there's a GCF, and what works is 3. So we're going to put 3 and then divide each term by 3. And then whatever's remaining, we'll put in the parentheses. All right, so 3 goes into 9 3 times. That leaves us with 3x squared as a remainder. 3 goes into 66 22 times. That leaves us with 22x. And 3 goes into 21 7 times. That'll leave us with a 7. All right, there we go. Okay, and then just a reminder that when we do this, we only going to X method in the parentheses. All right, so in that case here, A is going to be a 3, B is going to be a 22, and of course, if you don't do the GCF, you skip the second step or miss it, you're going to put A as a 9. Okay, it's going to kind of mess you up there. All right, C is going to be a 7. All right, so let's go ahead and X method over here. Okay, so I'm going to put 3 in my denominator. On the bottom, 3 times 7, which is going to give me a 21, and then my B coefficient is a 22. All right, now the factors for this is going to be 1 and 21. And it's so often students don't realize that 1 is still a factor. So if you make a tree of 21, right, 1 times 21 is 21. Okay, the same as 3 times 7. So a lot of students will try to use 3 and 7, but you can't get it to add up, you know, and they just forget about using 1. Okay, if we take the sum of 21 and 1, that gives me 22. All right, so 1 times 21 is 21, and then 1 plus 21 gets us 22. All right, and that figures out our factors. We do want to reduce, so we're going to get a 7 here on the right. They write it in intercept form. Okay, so x plus 1/3 times x plus 7. All right, we only have to swing the first factor. All right, so let's take this 3 and put it in front of the x. And that's going to be 3x plus 1 times x plus 7. All right, and now we can factor when we have different a values other than 1.